The entire classroom froze in shocked silence. Just moments earlier, they'd been laughing as Dr. Harrison, the arrogant calculus professor, mockingly handed the marker to Elena Ramirez, the middle-aged janitor who quietly cleaned their classroom each evening. Now their jaws hung open as they stared at the board where Elena had just solved an equation that had stumped even their professor. No one was laughing anymore. That's correct, Dr. Harrison stammered, his face pale. But how did you... I have a PhD in mathematics from the University of Madrid. Elena replied calmly, already turning back toward her cleaning cart. I specialized in complex analysis before I immigrated to this country. And just like that, everything at Westlake University changed forever. Before we dive into this incredible true story, please like this video and share where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more jaw-dropping stories like this one to light. Now let's see exactly how this shocking moment came to be. It started as an ordinary Monday morning at Westlake University. Students rushed across campus fighting hangovers with venti coffees while professors hurried to their first classes. The air was crisp with early autumn, leaves crunching underfoot as backpack-laden students navigated the sprawling campus. In Ahadi, room 237 of the mathematics building, students reluctantly filed into advanced calculus, dreading another 90 minutes with Dr. Richard Harrison. At 53, Harrison was the most feared professor in the department. With 3 best-selling textbooks and a wall full of awards, his intellectual brilliance was matched only by his towering ego. His salt-and-pepper hair was always perfectly styled, his posture ramrod straight, conveying authority with every movement. Students called him the executioner for his sadistic delight in failing those he deemed unworthy. Even other professors gave him a wide berth, unwilling to challenge the department's star academic, despite his notorious arrogance. 70% of you will not pass this course, he'd announced on the first day of class, a smile playing at his lips. And I'm being generous with that estimate. Several students had dropped the course immediately. Those who remained did so out of necessity. The course was required for their majors, and Harrison was the only professor who taught it. As students settled into their seats, arranging calculators and notebooks, Dr. Harrison was already writing complex equations across the whiteboard. His tailored suit and gold watch screamed success, and he knew it. Every movement seemed designed to reinforce his intellectual superiority. He wrote with dramatic flourishes, occasionally glancing back at his students with an expression that challenged them to keep up. The class was a mix of nervous juniors and seniors, most of whom had heard the horror stories about Harrison's impossible exams and cutting remarks. Sophia Kim sat in the front row, determined to maintain her perfect GPA despite Harrison's notorious grading. Behind her, Trevor Mitchell nervously chewed his pencil, still traumatized from the C- Harrison had given him on the last quiz, the lowest grade of his academic career. In the back corner, James Rodriguez frantically reviewed his notes from the previous class, hoping to avoid becoming Harrison's latest target for public humiliation. At the back of the room, Elena Ramirez quietly emptied trash cans, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun. At 48, her face showed the weathering of someone who'd worked hard her entire life. Deep lines around her eyes, a permanent furrow between her brows from years of concentration and concern. Her hands, though steady and graceful, bore the calluses and slight discoloration from years of harsh cleaning chemicals. Her university-issued uniform was faded, but immaculately clean, just like the floors and desks she meticulously maintained. For 12 years Elena had cleaned these halls, invisible to most of the students and faculty who occupied them. She moved with practiced efficiency, her eyes downcast, her presence barely acknowledged. Students stepped around her as if she were furniture. Professors nodded vaguely if they noticed her at all. Elena had perfected the art of invisibility, until today. Dr. Harrison's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Today we're tackling nonlinear differential equations," he announced, writing a particularly complex formula on the board with dramatic flair. Students frantically scribbled notes, already looking overwhelmed. Sophia's pen moved rapidly across her notebook, trying to capture every nuance of Harrison's explanation. Trevor had already given up, staring at the board with a look of hopeless confusion. "This equation," he continued, circling a section of his work, "has been known to stump first-year doctoral students." His smile was predatory as he scanned the room. "Any volunteers to solve it?" He paused dramatically, knowing full well what would happen next. The silence was deafening. Students suddenly found their shoelaces fascinating, desperate to avoid his gaze. Sophia bent her head over her notebook, pretending to review her notes. Trevor slid down in his seat, trying to make himself invisible. Even James, usually confident with mathematical concepts, stared fixedly at his calculator, as if it contained the secrets of the universe. Dr. Harrison's smile widened as he savored their discomfort. This was the part of teaching he enjoyed most, asserting his intellectual dominance, reminding these young minds just how far they had to go to approach his level of understanding. "Just as I thought," he said with a performative sigh. "Perhaps we need someone with more life experience." His eyes landed on Elena, who was quietly emptying the recycling bin. Several students followed his gaze, already smirking in anticipation. Harrison had done this before, using maintenance staff, cafeteria workers, or security guards as props in his intellectual theater, objects of mockery designed to reinforce the boundaries between the educated elite and those who served them. "Mrs. Ramirez," he called out, his voice dripping with mock politeness, "would you care to take a break from your janitorial duties and show these students how to solve this problem?" Laughter erupted, though not from everyone. Sophia Kim in the front row frowned, looking uncomfortable. James Rodriguez in the back muttered something under his breath that sounded like, "not cool." But most joined in, grateful that Harrison's academic sadism was directed elsewhere for once. Elena froze, garbage bag in hand. This wasn't the first time a professor had used her as the punchline to a joke. Usually she'd smile politely and continue working, accepting the humiliation as part of the job. But today, something shifted inside her as she glanced at the equation. It was elegant, beautiful even, and instantly familiar, a variation of a problem she'd worked on during her doctoral research nearly 20 years earlier. She could still remember the satisfaction she'd felt when she'd first developed an elegant solution, the proud smile of her advisor, the excitement when her approach was published in the Journal of Mathematical Analysis. That had been another life, before immigration, before her daughter's illness, before the countless compromises and sacrifices that had led her here, to this moment, standing with a garbage bag in her hand, while students laughed at the absurdity of a janitor understanding advanced mathematics. "Well?" Dr. Harrison pressed, extending the marker toward her with theatrical flair. Perhaps you'd like to enlighten us with your janitorial wisdom on advanced mathematics. More laughter followed, crueler this time. Elena carefully set down her trash bag. She straightened her uniform, smoothed back a stray hair, and walked deliberately toward the front of the room. The laughter faltered, replaced by confused whispers. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to smile awkwardly and go back to her cleaning. As she took the marker from Dr. Harrison's hand, their eyes met. Briefly. What he saw there, not embarrassment or anger, but calm, absolute certainty, made him step back involuntarily. There was something in her gaze that challenged his entire worldview, a quiet confidence that seemed entirely out of place in someone who cleaned floors for a living. Elena turned to the board, studying the equation. The room had fallen completely, silent now, students watching with a mixture of curiosity and second-hand embarrassment. Dr. Harrison crossed his arms, preparing to enjoy the spectacle of the janitor making a fool of herself. He wondered briefly if he'd gone too far this time, but quickly dismissed the thought. This was a teaching moment, a reminder to his students about the value of the education they were receiving, the clear line between those who understood complex mathematics and those who didn't. Then, Elena began to write. Her hand moved with surprising speed and confidence across the board. She transformed variables, rearranged terms, applied substitutions that even Dr. Harrison had to follow closely to. Understand? There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, just the fluid movements of someone intimately familiar with advanced mathematical concepts. At first, a few students snickered, assuming she was randomly scribbling. But the laughter quickly died as they realized what they were witnessing. This wasn't random. This was methodical, sophisticated mathematical problem-solving happening right before their eyes. Dr. Harrison's smug smile evaporated. His arms uncrossed slowly as he stared in mounting disbelief. Elena wasn't just attempting the problem, she was solving it with elegance and insight, using an approach he himself hadn't considered. His face paled visibly as the implications began to dawn on him. Phones came out as students started recording. No one was taking notes anymore. All eyes were fixed on the janitor whose hands were dancing across the board with the confidence of a concert pianist. Sophia leaned forward, her expression transforming from discomfort to awe. James nodded slightly, a small smile of appreciation forming as he recognized the elegance of Elena's approach. Even Trevor had stopped chewing his pencil, his mouth slightly open as he watched the unexpected demonstration. After 3 minutes of absolute silence broken only by the squeak of the marker, Elena circled her final answer, capped the marker, and turned to face the class. The room remained frozen, every eye locked on the elegant solution where moments before there had been an impossible challenge. "That's—" Dr. Harrison finally choked out, his voice barely audible. "That's correct. But how did you—" "I have a PhD in mathematics from the University of Madrid," Elena replied matter-of-factly. "I specialized in complex analysis and differential equations before I immigrated to this country." The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Several students gasped audibly. Sophia Kim in the front row whispered, "Holy shit," loud enough for everyone to hear. The classroom erupted in shocked whispers as students tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Dr. Harrison stood completely still, his entire world-view crumbling around him. The janitor, the woman who emptied his office trash can, who mopped the floors after hours, whom he had never once truly looked at, possessed knowledge that rivaled his own. More disturbing still was the elegance of her solution, the insight and creativity she demonstrated. This wasn't mere technical proficiency. This was mathematical brilliance. "Dr. Ramirez," Harrison said, the title sounding strange on his lips. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," Elena replied without bitterness. "Why would you? To you, I'm just the woman who empties your trash." Her words hung in the air, a simple statement of fact that nonetheless carried the weight of a profound indictment. Harrison had the grace to look ashamed, his usual confidence replaced by genuine discomfort. With quiet dignity, she handed the marker back to Dr. Harrison, turned, and walked back to her cart. The message was clear. She was returning to her work, regardless of what had just happened. She had made her point, revealed her truth, but she wasn't seeking validation or recognition. She had a job to do, and she would continue to do it with the same quiet competence she always had. But the students weren't ready to let the moment pass. A hand shot up from the back. James Rodriguez, a usually quiet engineering major. "Dr. Ramirez," he called out, "could you explain how you approached that solution? I've been struggling with this concept for weeks." Elena paused, her hand on her cleaning cart. She looked up to see not mockery or pity in the student's eyes, but genuine interest and newfound respect. Even Dr. Harrison seemed to be waiting for her response, his earlier arrogance replaced by something that looked almost like humility. For a moment, Elena hesitated. It had been so long since she'd been asked to explain a mathematical concept, so long since she'd been recognized for her mind rather than her labor. The familiar excitement of teaching, of sharing knowledge, of illuminating complex ideas, surged through her, almost overwhelming in its intensity. "The key," she said, walking back toward the board, "isn't just finding any solution, it's finding the most elegant path to that solution." She picked up the marker again and began annotating her work. "Here, let me show you." For the next 20 minutes, Elena explained complex mathematical concepts with remarkable clarity, breaking down difficult ideas into understandable components. Her accent became more pronounced as her passion for the subject emerged, the formal English she'd learned in academic settings flowing more naturally than her carefully modulated janitor's English. Students who had been struggling all semester suddenly found concepts clicking into place under her guidance. Sophia nodded vigorously, making rapid notes. Trevor's expression transformed from confusion to dawning comprehension. James asked thoughtful, follow-up questions, engaged in a mathematical dialogue unlike anything Harrison's strict lecturing style had ever permitted. Even Dr. Harrison watched in silence, occasionally nodding as Elena illuminated approaches he hadn't considered. His expression was complex, embarrassment certainly, but also a grudging professional respect as he recognized genuine mathematical insight. When the bell finally rang, no one moved. For the first time in memory, students were reluctant to leave a calculus lecture. "Thank you, Dr. Ramirez," Sophia said, the first to break the silence. Others quickly joined in, a spontaneous round of applause breaking out as Elena smiled, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "I should get back to work," she said quietly, returning to her cart. There are 3 more classrooms waiting for me.
As she wheeled her cart toward the door, Dr. Harrison finally found his voice. "Dr. Ramirez," he called after her, "I owe you an apology." Elena paused at the door. "We all make assumptions, Dr. Harrison," she replied. "The important thing is what we do when those assumptions are challenged."
And with that, she was gone, leaving behind a room full of people whose perspectives had been permanently altered. The students filed out slowly, still discussing what they'd witnessed, many watching the videos they'd recorded, still struggling to process the extraordinary event. By that afternoon, the video had gone viral across campus. "Janitor schools professor in his own class," the student newspaper headline blared. Clips of Elena solving the equation were being shared on every social media platform, accompanied by comments ranging from admiration to outrage that someone with her qualifications was emptying trash cans. "Did you see what happened in Harrison's class? That janitor is literally a math genius. How is someone with a PhD cleaning our classrooms? Harrison's face when she solved it, priceless." The conversations echoed across campus in dining halls and dorm rooms, in faculty lounges and administrative offices. What had begun as a moment of casual cruelty had transformed into something much more significant, a stark revelation of hidden bias, of talent overlooked, of human dignity affirmed. The university administration scrambled to respond. The dean of sciences personally called Elena to his office, where he discovered that she had indeed listed her doctoral degree on her employment application 15 years earlier. It had been flagged as likely falsified by HR and ignored. After all, why would a real PhD apply for a maintenance position? The university president issued a formal apology, both to Elena personally and in a public statement acknowledging the unconscious biases that had led to this situation. "Westlake University is committed to recognizing and valuing the contributions and capabilities of all our employees," the statement read. "We acknowledge that we have failed in this commitment regarding Dr. Elena Ramirez, and we are taking immediate steps to address this failure." Students began seeking Elena out between classes, some for help with difficult problems, others simply to hear her story. They found her exactly where she'd always been, mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms, emptying trash cans, only now they actually saw her. She responded to each interaction with the same quiet dignity she'd always possessed, neither rejecting their newfound interest, nor seeming particularly surprised by it. Dr. Harrison avoided her for several days, clearly struggling with his own embarrassment and the shattering of his worldview. Students noticed that his teaching style had subtly changed, less performative arrogance, more focused on ensuring understanding. The mockery that had been his trademark was conspicuously absent. Something fundamental had shifted in his approach to both his subject and his students. But on Friday afternoon he found Elena cleaning the faculty lounge and knew it was time for the conversation he'd been avoiding. The room was empty save for the 2 of them, Harrison having deliberately waited until he knew they would have privacy. "Dr. Ramirez," he began, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "I wanted to apologize properly for my behavior. It was unprofessional, disrespectful, and—" He paused, searching for words. "It revealed prejudices I didn't even realize I harbored." Elena set down her cleaning cloth and turned to face him fully. "We all have prejudices, Dr. Harrison," she said. "The question is whether we're willing to recognize and address them when they're exposed." Harrison nodded, his expression thoughtful. May I ask, he ventured, why someone with your qualifications is working as a janitor? You could be teaching, publishing. Elena considered his question carefully. It was one she had asked herself many times over the years, during late nights mopping floors when the campus was quiet and memories of her academic past seemed like dreams from another life. I came to this country 15 years ago with my daughter, she explained. My credentials weren't recognized here, and my English wasn't strong enough for academia. I applied for teaching positions anyway, but without U.S. experience or references, no one would take a chance on me. She paused, the memories still painful despite the years that had passed. Then my daughter became ill, a rare form of leukemia. I needed stable work with health insurance and flexible hours. The maintenance position offered that when academics couldn't. She looked him directly in the eyes. Sometimes we make choices others don't understand because they can't see the full picture of our lives. Her words hit him hard, forcing him to confront how easily he had dismissed her based on her job title, how completely he had failed to see her humanity. How many others had he similarly dismissed throughout his career? How many talents had gone unrecognized? How many voices unheard because they didn't fit his narrow conception of what intelligence looked like? And your daughter? He asked softly. Elena's face transformed with a genuine smile, the deep lines around her eyes crinkling with pride and joy. She graduates from Stanford Medical School this spring, she said. The first doctor in our family. Working here gave us what we needed, stability, health insurance, and the chance for her to have opportunities I never had. Dr. Harrison nodded, truly humbled for perhaps the first time in his professional career. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken thoughts, with recalibrations of assumptions, with quiet acknowledgments of worth and dignity. The university would be fortunate to have you in an academic capacity, Dr. Ramirez, he said finally. If you would consider it, I'd be willing to speak to the department chair. 1 month later, Elena gave her first official lecture as a newly appointed adjunct professor in the mathematics department. The room was packed beyond capacity, students sitting in the aisles and standing along the walls. She still worked part-time, in maintenance, her choice, but now divided her time between cleaning classrooms and teaching in them. She began not with complex equations or abstract theory, but with a simple truth that had become her unofficial motto around campus. Mathematics teaches us that things are rarely what they first appear to be, she said, looking out at the eager faces. The same is true of people. We are all more complex, more capable, and more valuable than the labels we wear or the jobs we do. With that, she picked up her marker and wrote an equation on the board, beginning a lecture that students would describe for years as life-changing, not just because of the mathematics she taught, but because of the powerful lesson in human dignity that came with it. And it all began with a marker handed over in mockery, with an equation that seemed impossible, with a moment when a woman who had been invisible decided to be seen. Dr. Elena Ramirez, the janitor who became a professor, didn't just change the mathematics department at Westlake University. She changed how people saw the invisible workers all around them, the maintenance staff, the cafeteria workers, the groundskeepers whose labor made the university function, but whose humanity had gone unrecognized. Her story spread far beyond campus, featured in national news and academic journals alike, sparking conversations about credential recognition for immigrants, hidden bias in hiring practices, and the arbitrary nature of status in academic settings. She received offers from prestigious universities across the country, but chose to stay at Westlake, continuing both her teaching and her maintenance work. "This is where I'm needed," she explained simply when asked why she didn't move to a more prestigious institution. "And this is where I can make the most difference." Perhaps her greatest impact was on her students, who learned that day that the most important equations aren't the ones written on boards. They're the ones that help us recalculate our understanding of the people around us. Each time they passed, a maintenance worker, a cafeteria employee, a groundskeeper, they looked at them differently, wondering what hidden talents, what untold stories, what unrecognized brilliance might lie beneath the uniform. As for Dr. Harrison, he underwent his own transformation. The arrogant professor, known for public humiliation, became an advocate for recognizing unconventional talent, for creating pathways for non-traditional students and faculty. His fundamental understanding of intelligence, what it looked like, where it could be found, how it should be valued, had been permanently altered by a simple interaction with a janitor who turned out to be so much more. "The most important lesson I've learned in 30 years of teaching," he told a faculty gathering months later, "I learned not from my professors or colleagues, but from someone I had overlooked entirely. Dr. Ramirez taught me that brilliance doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it quietly cleans the room, waiting for someone to simply pay attention." If you were moved by this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring true stories that challenge our assumptions. Tell us in the comments if you've ever discovered unexpected brilliance in unlikely places. And remember, sometimes the most profound lessons come from the people we never thought to learn from at all.